Hello and welcome to the Fitness That Fits You podcast. Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun. This podcast is brought to you by Austin Pegram, sponsored and produced by Austin Pegram, owner and head coach of Fitness That Fits You. But you already knew that. Today, I have a very special guest on with me. Very special guest to my heart and to my life. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Rebecca Louise King. I don't know why I had them play like laughter and not applause. There's a laughter effect on this, and I pushed the laughter effect. Please introduce yourself, Miss King. Miss King is shy.
I can't do that. That wasn't part of the deal. No. All right, that wasn't part of the deal.
So here's what we have going on. Today, I want to just kind of touch base on six key factors that are potentially damaging or stopping, preventing, impeding your path toward reaching your goals. I realize I made that pretty wordy. I want to introduce six things that could be stopping you from reaching your goals. Simplicity. These six things are important, and they are they are essential for you to be able to identify, because they probably happen on a day-to-day basis for you, and that's why you may be having trouble reaching your goals, okay? Whether that be muscle building, whether that be weight loss, whether that be just feeling great, right? These six things can potentially have an impact, or a combination of these six things can potentially have an impact on whether or not you're getting to where you want to be, okay? I will be asking Becca some key questions about her specific experience with these key things, okay? And so first, what I want to talk about is mindfulness, okay? That is number one, okay? Let's go ahead and label that. Number one, mindfulness. Are you mindful of what you are eating? Are you mindful of exercise? How do you feel about exercise? How do you feel about nutrition? What is your relationship with food? What is your relationship with exercise? And so one key thing that I've noticed, or rather that I've found just doing what I've been doing for the last few years, is that people do not have a positive relationship with food, and people do not have a positive relationship with exercise. And there are, all of these interpretations of how the two go together. 80-20, the 80-20 rule, where it's, 20% or exercise and 80% nutrition. And that's not quite how that works. It's actually a very complicated, simple, but at the same time complicated combination of the two that allow you to be healthy overall, right? The nutrition is there to fuel your lifestyle. It's there to provide you with the necessary nutrients that you need to perform well, whether that be, you being at your most, your highest of mental alertness at work, or if you are an athlete and you need to be your job is physically demanding day to day for 8 hours a day. The nutrition is there to provide you with the fuel that you need, and that is why it plays such a huge role, right? So it's really 100% nutrition, because if your nutrition is shit, then your performance is shit, right? But on the other end, exercise plays a very large role, right? Because you can eat well all day long, but it's going to take you a lot longer to get to your goals if your basic metabolic rate is not where you need it to be too. If you're not burning calories at rest, if you're not burning a lot of calories at rest, right? If you're not exerting that much energy throughout the day, right? So you've got all this good nutrition in you, but you're reaching your goals at a much slower rate. Why? Because you're not moving a lot, right? Because you're not building lean muscle mass. You're not burning fat in your sleep, right? You're not resistance training to maintain lean muscle mass after, a long, rigorous weight loss journey. Your cardiovascular health isn't very up to par, if you will. So you go on a walk and you're out of breath. Your conditioning is very low, right? These two things play a role, right? If your exercise is shit, then your momentum is shit. And if your nutrition is shit, then your exercise is shit. It's 100% exercise and 100% nutrition. So with number one, we need to think about what our mentality and our relationship is with food and exercise. And if you have a negative relationship with these two essentials, right, then you're going to be impacting your goal and where you want to be. Becca, so are there any things that you feel like may be impacting, any health or fitness goals that you have, whether it be movement or whether it be nutrition or a combination of the two? Can you speak on that at all? Keep in mind, folks, that Becca and I, but mostly Becca, being that she is the mother, we are, 3 months in or out. I guess we say out, like 3 months out of or away from. 3 months away from having postpartum. 3 months postpartum here, okay? Little Rosalie is 3 months old as of last Wednesday. So we'll be coming up on 3 months in a week here this Wednesday. And so her responses obviously will be distinct maybe from the single mom who works 30 hours a day. Wait, there's only 24 hours in a day. Who works 16 hours a day, right? So we're going to dive on in here. Number one, our relationship with food and our relationship with fitness. How is that impacting us? So, Becca, what is your relationship with food and your relationship with fitness or movement, rather, and how is that impacting your life?
Let's see. Well, right now, obviously, after having a baby, it is vastly different than what it has always been. This is the most stagnant, probably isn't the best word, because I'm moving with Rosie and taking care of her and nursing her, and that takes a lot of energy. But it's probably the furthest away from the type of fitness and movement that I'm used to. And that goes hand in hand with food, too. I've always had a very strong relationship with food in terms of always working in the industry, physically making food, whether it be for my job or at home or growing food. I've been lucky to have a positive relationship with food, and it has very much been a good connection for me with my movement, because I've been very aware in the past of how much of an effect it has on my ability to move the way that I want to. With that being said, these days and throughout my pregnancy, one of the hardest things was missing food and missing how good it could make me feel. Because during pregnancy, I pretty much lost all appetite and I couldn't really eat the food I was used to. And now that I'm starting to get my appetite back, I don't have the time right now to cook the food that I enjoy eating and that I want to eat for myself and for my family. And with that being said, also I'm not moving the same way. And so other than
just to point out, so Becca, and she's already touched on this, but Becca does move quite a bit throughout the day. But there's a difference between, creating this active calorie burn, right, from activity, from exercise, and then calorie burn at rest, which is what we talked about. So she's got just her normal day-to-day way of moving that creates a lot of activity for her, walking around with Rosalie, with taking her on walks. She's up on her feet all day, bouncing, getting these quads right. You know what I'm saying? So she's always moving, but there's a difference between calories at rest and calories, like active calorie burn. And she's already made that clear in saying that her movement is different. That's a very good thing to touch base on. So I appreciate you saying that, because a lot of people think that because they work at a job that involves them being on their feet all day, that's like active movement, active calorie burn, and it isn't to the degree of exercise. They're being active by not sitting, but it's not to the degree of exercise. So thank you. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, well, that's just always something that's one of the biggest changes for me right now, is one, not working, and just kind of having that at-rest movement in a way, because the majority of all of my jobs have been physical manual labor, and for the most part I would do that, and then in the evenings do some type of exercise or other type of working out or whatever, and so that's been just this right now. One thing that's gotten in the way for me is just like not feeling super comfortable in a gym, and feeling like it's hard to come up with workouts at home that feel enticing and exciting.
And you were doing suspend.
The aerials, and that's why I got into it in the first place, is because it was challenging every day, and it was different every day, and it made me use my brain in a way that I hadn't experienced before. But with that, even more so, I had to focus on my food intake, and I had to learn how to prioritize it, because I was working at Blue Dog doing very, very physical labor from 6 a.m. until 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and then doing suspend for 2 or 3 hours in the evening, and it was a very different relationship with food, because I was choosing not to actively make all my food, and I had to find ways to fit in the correct type of calories, and I very much had to learn and utilize Austin for understanding how I needed to gain the correct type of weight for all of the output that I was doing. That's not the correct terminology, but
no, that's great.
And how I was the strongest I've ever been, and that was probably the hardest when it came to food, because I couldn't keep up with it. It was hard for me to eat the amount that I should have been for the amount of exercise and like physical activity I was doing. I love food, but I'm like a 3 meal a day type of person, and I've never really been a snacker, and I've never been able to do the like 5 small meals a day. It's like I eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I drink coffee all day, and that's like I'm happy there. And so I never have a problem drinking water, but that was really like the hardest thing, was like at my like when I was the most active and like the strongest, it was the hardest for me to get the right amount of calories in. Yeah. And it was probably the thinnest I've ever been too, just because of that. I was just like lean and.
So that's awesome. That's actually a great segue, because the next thing, number 2, one of the second thing that I want to.
No shame right now.
Somebody's gonna ask what that sound was in the background, and I'll tell them. I'll tell them what it was.
Okay.
So
nursing a baby all day.
So that's actually a great segue, because Becca, you mentioned the the lifestyle that you were living. Very active lifestyle, between working all day, being on your feet all day, working with your hands all day, and then going and putting another 2-3 hours in for yourself. But it was also in the way of fitness. And so Number two here, one thing that people don't do is, and we're veering away from exercise for a bit in terms of it being the priority of the conversation here, but now we're going more to nutrition. So people often won't strategize how they're eating, So, let's say you're used to eating 3 meals a day. That's fine. That's great. If you know how to get the amount of calories you need, in during those 3 meals, then that may suffice. However, if you struggle with that, you may need to take a bit more of a strategic plan towards your eating, and that would mean, eating for your performance, right? So throughout the day, it's probably going to be, I would say in that particular scenario, it would have been pretty important for Becca to have a breakfast in the morning to kind of power her day, a lunch, and then maybe right after work, some sort of heavy snack, for her fitness, her activity, right? And so ideally, because she is going to be training for so long, she may want to take in some, more slow acting carbohydrates, right? Something that can sustain her for a longer period of time. And then there's a lot of talk about protein before or after, or before and after your workouts for, tissue repair and damage and things like that. But I think predominantly, or I think primarily, you would want to take in your slow acting complex carbs before such a long workout, and then afterward, definitely make sure that you have some good protein to assist in that muscle breakdown, that tissue repair. Because what can happen is, while you're being very active, you may not be setting yourself up to maintain muscle mass, to build, lean muscle. And so what's going to happen is your body, while you may be losing weight and things like that, you're getting that atrophy, right? That muscular atrophy where your muscles are not, they're getting, and that may have been where that slimming you were talking about was coming from, right? You maybe weren't, retaining some of that muscle that you were building during the exercise. And so, it may not have been the case for her. That's just an example. It can change for each individual, and how they do that. I know that there are days when I miss my protein, and I'm still able to bounce back. I'm still able to bounce back pretty well the next day, or I may miss my carbohydrates and I'm still able to push through an hour and a half, 2 hour workout, and a lot of that is momentum. A lot of that is practice, muscle memory, conditioning, right? So it kind of just depends on where you are, but I think that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because that is, in my opinion, while there's, number one, the relationship with food and nutrition and exercise being the number one issue, right? Being mindful, knowing why you're doing it, having a positive relationship with those two things, because they end up benefiting. It's just all benefit. It's not there to kill you. We don't want you to exercise because, we want to torture you. We want you to exercise because you should. It's healthy, right? And then number two, how are you eating? Are you eating for what you're doing? That can have a huge impact on whether or not you're getting the results that you want to. So I appreciate you touching base on that. What are some things that you ate? Like, that was so long ago. You probably wouldn't be able to pinpoint some things.
I ate a lot of, it was when I was at work, it was a lot of, because of the nature of the job, I couldn't eat a lot of heavy stuff, and I didn't have time to eat multiple meals. But when I ate a lunch, it was usually like a big salad with protein on it, some kind of protein on it.
Okay.
And lots of vegetables.
Yeah. So getting a lot of our carbohydrates from fibrous carbohydrates, not necessarily starchy carbs.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Okay. That's probably why she was so lean, y'all. You should have seen her back then. Lean, cut. I mean, she's still that way now. She bounced back pretty quickly after having Rosie, but it was because of her. She just got those genes. You should see her mom too, man.
Stop.
Sorry. Okay, let's move on to number 3.
That's who's calling me.
Is that
right
your
now.
mom? Is that your mom calling? Let's move on to number 3, you all. Okay, we're gonna touch base now on exercise itself. I want to introduce a few different concepts of exercise, different types. I want to introduce the FIT principle, and then kind of pick Becca's brain, a little bit on where she thinks the future will take her in the way of like some of the new exercise that she's going to be doing once she gets a little bit more free time for herself. Becca had some issues with her hands, is why she could not suspend the aerial training anymore. So want to pick her brain about motivation and how tough it is to find exercise that fits you. Get what I did there? Fitness that fits you. I'm all about it. Golden nuggets. Number 3, exercise. Okay. How are you approaching your exercise? If you all hear any like crackling or something, that is my dog in the background, like biting on one of her toys. So, just ignore that. Maybe I'll have her on one day. Want to have baby on one day?
She doesn't wake the baby yet.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we could have Rosie on one day. Let people hear her talk, right? That'd be pretty funny. All right, y'all. So what I want to do is, just kind of discuss, how we're approaching exercise and, whether or not that's having an impact on us. Are we choosing the right exercise for our goal? Are we doing enough of it, right? What's the intensity? Why should we even do exercise? Let's talk about it. All right. So I want to introduce the FIT principle to you all. All right. The FIT principle, that's F as in frequency, I as in intensity. That's a very important one. T as in time, T as in type, right? So 2 T's on this, not fit as in FIT, but fit as in FITT. All right. Now, why are these things very important? You need to be thinking about the frequency of your exercise, right? Are you working out once a week? If so, you need to do more, right? Ideally, you're strength training 3 days a week, at least. And then you are doing some sort of aerobic activity every single day, walking, jogging, ellipticaling. That's not an actual term, but being on the elliptical, if you will, steps. I don't know, maybe some light muscle endurance work, body weight training, cycling. You need to be doing something for at least 30 minutes a day, right? It's just good for your overall cardiovascular health. Okay. Time. How much time are you spending on that, right? So I kind of touch base with your aerobic training, right? You probably want to try to go for at least 30 minutes or more, right? Depending on how physically demanding your training is, of course. And then, maybe sometimes your workouts are more like, 15 minutes, and that's okay. If that's all the time you have in your day, then you want to be thinking about the intensity there, right? You want to be thinking about the intensity of that limited amount of time that you have. Are you walking at a leisurely pace for 15 minutes? Or are you, going all out on your jog or all out on your resistance training or all out on your stair climber for 15 minutes? What are you doing to exert the most energy, right? And then type of exercise, right? Are you doing just cardiovascular training? Are you doing strength training? Are you doing yoga, flexibility and mobility training? What exactly are you doing? And are you doing what's necessary for your specific goals, right? These are all things you want to think about. And then, of course, like I said, you want to be thinking about why we need to be doing exercise anyway. So many reasons why we need to be doing exercise, okay? First of all, it brightens your mood. I don't know if you've ever just been like sitting down and just been like in the dumps and then you get up and do some jumping jacks or go outside and go on a walk, but you immediately feel tons better. I can't tell you how many times I see people early in the morning and they feel like shit before their workout. And then after their workout, they're like, whew, I'm ready. Let's start my day, right? I can't tell you how many times I've gone on a run after feeling kind of shitty, mentally, physically, go on a run and then come from that with that euphoria feeling. People say they get that runner's high, that positive mood, and just feeling uplifted. You got your adrenaline rush going, you got your endorphins firing, right? Like, these are all reasons that exercise, I would imagine, would be optimal for you, right? They're going to create that positive nature within you. And then, of course, internally, just, it helps to prevent some of your risky, your more at risk, what would you like, issues, diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, cancer, right? You're really just trying to strengthen your body and your internal body as much as you possibly can to fight off any of the bullshit that you don't want, right? Exercise plays a huge role. Okay. So let's talk about some specifics, some reasons why these things play such a big role. You could do HIIT training and weight training, but what exactly are those things doing for you? So take into account cardiovascular exercise, right? It's going to be key for losing weight, burning calories during exercise, right? Preventing heart disease. Some of your more steady state cardiovascular activities, right, are going to really help you burn calories on the day, right? Just another way for you to burn more calories on the day. This doesn't have to just be stair climber or elliptical or just running. This can be, a basketball game or a long soccer game, something like that. Weight training, right? Weight training. And keep in mind, I want you to take notes on these, right? I've already talked about cardiovascular training, but I want you to think about how a lot of these will go together, right? So we're going to go through these. Weight training, right? That's going to be great for strengthening your core, addressing some of the postural alignment, right? In your body, trying to strengthen those muscles, prevent muscle atrophy, things like that. Okay. Doing this in conjunction with aerobic activity, with cardiovascular activity, is going to have some awesome benefits for you, because the more lean muscle mass you can build, right, the more opportunity you've created to burn fat, right? To burn fat, right? To shrink fat cells, right? And so you do that on top of completing or participating in cardiovascular training, which helps burn calories, right? Then you've put yourself in a great position. Not only are you creating this internal health, but you're also creating this opportunity for optimal body composition, body fat percentage, and things like that. Okay. With that being said, lift heavy if you're lifting, right? You're going to have some days where you don't lift heavy, obviously, but lift heavy. It doesn't do anything for you, but again, create opportunity for your body to be strong and durable, right? Make sure you lift heavy. All that resistance training is going to do is just place you in a better position to improve your metabolic rate. Muscle is a bit more dense and a bit more metabolically active than fat, right? So building muscle helps you to increase your metabolism, right? So obviously this is going to mean you can burn more calories daily in your sleep. While you're sleeping and dreaming, you can burn calories, right? These are things you want to be focusing on, okay? Definitely make sure you're getting that in. You can do that in the way of just like steady, like long, intense lifting sessions, or you can do, again, for those that only have 15, 20 minutes, you get your HIIT training in, right? That's going to be very short bursts of activity at your, most intense percentages, if you will, trying to do that within an allotted amount of time, right? That's just going to help benefit you even further. Okay. Now, with that being said, exercise, again, these different kinds of exercise are going to be very important. One thing you don't want to do is what we're going to talk about next, and that is number 4. But before I get there, I want to ask Becca a question. Okay. Becca, so with, you not being able to, complete the aerial training anymore, what kind of challenges have you had in the way of motivation to find a new form of exercise? A lot of challenges.
All of the challenges.
All of the challenges, right?
I guess the biggest challenge is just not feeling as excited about other forms of exercise just because of how much I enjoyed and how good I felt when I was doing aerials, and like the strength that I built and the flexibility. It was like really the first time I had felt like an all around, like it was the first time I had felt in every part of my body the way I wanted to feel in terms of exercising and being flexible and being strong and confident in what I was doing. It's the first time I like actually felt like a badass when I was like exercising, and so having to leave that was hard, and I just haven't been able to really figure out what that looks like in a different light. It was also very mentally stimulating for me, which is very important. I tend to get bored pretty quickly with just like going for a run or just like going to the gym. And I can't.
That's probably a lot of the listeners too.
Yeah, and it's so hard to be motivated when I just expect that. And so honestly, like feeling bored is probably the biggest challenge for me. Even when Austin makes me one of his awesome workouts, not to say that his workouts are boring, it's just not as mentally stimulating for me. And so it's hard to feel confident when I go into those because I'm not as excited. And so I don't put my all into it, and it's just kind of like a cycle of not embracing it in a way that I probably could if I was a little more excited about it.
Yeah. And you know, I think these are all things that, like, you know, I don't necessarily experience that on the same level because I don't ever get bored. But there are those days where, like, physically, like my mind is so involved with other things that physically I like don't want to do any kind of working out. And so I have to kind of, you know, force myself on those days to do the foundation, right? To do like the instinctual things. Like I know my strength is important, so I'm gonna do your maintenance level movements, your traditional lifts, a bench press and a row and a squat, like those traditional things. And I'm probably not gonna do them at a heavy weight, more of a body weight type of thing, again, to maintain strength. And it's still boring at that point. Like I'm still not all the way in it. I'm just like doing it on auto, you know. But, you know, for somebody like Becca, I would imagine it wouldn't necessarily be those things. It would be cardiovascular health is very important. You know, you need to make sure you're getting some sort of cardio in. Strength obviously is very important, but it may not look like a bench press or a 185 squat for 3 sets of 10. It may not look something like that. You know, it may look more like, you know, just, you know, more corrective or preventative health or exercise, you know, to strengthen the muscles you use on a daily basis with Rosie or something like that, right? But again, those are more on auto, right? On auto exercises, you know, auto programming. And so that's the shit that's boring because you're not really thinking about it, right? So, you know, and you know, Becca's not the only one that kind of deals with this. I would imagine that a lot of people deal with this. That's why a lot of people will come to me, is because they're bored as shit and they don't know, you know, they don't know what they want to do in the way of exercise, which is why I titled my brand Fitness to Fit You, right? Trying to figure out what fits the individual, right? But, you know, sometimes you have to do some serious digging. Sometimes you have to do some serious, like, mental training and, like, diving into your brain to see what works. And if there's anything physically that's, you know, restricting you from doing the things that do work, then that can be another obstacle, right? So, So, I'm glad that she spoke on that, because it may be easy for me to point out why exercise is important, or point out the different types of exercise and why those different types of exercise are important for your specific goal. However, there are sometimes going to be limiting factors that get in the way of you even doing those. And when that's the case, what do? Right? These are all things you might be seeking guidance on, right? And it takes practice until you get it, until you find it. And then one day you find it and it's like, damn, this is it. This is me. I got this. Well, that's awesome. I want to go ahead and move into number 4 before we end out here. We've got 6 of these things to go, so we've got 2 more here. But I guess 3, 4, 5, and 6. So number 4, y'all. This is actually a quick one. One thing that I believe may absolutely be, impeding on your goal or meeting your goal is sitting your ass down. We sit too freaking much. And I only know that because I used to sit all the damn time too for my job. And I would get up every day. And when I left there, I wouldn't have any energy to work out. And if I used to go in the mornings, but before I went in the mornings, if I went in the mornings, I would feel like shit the rest of the day, because I would lift and I would do this and I would do that. And then all day I wouldn't be moving. I wouldn't have any opportunity to stretch or be mobile. I would just be sitting in a seated position all day. And so if I did any chest, that's terrible, because now my pecs are getting shortened and I'm lean, I'm rounded forward. But, my back would be all stretched out and weak now because it's in this position. My neck would be hurting. All of the above, right? My ass would be hurting. You can't go and do hip thrusts and then go and sit in I almost said sitting in an ass. Ass sitting. And then go and sit in a chair for 8 hours. That shit's not going to work, And my knees, as bad as my feet are, I need to be trying to move and do some corrective work, right? Because if I don't, and my ankles pronate, my shoes my feet are flat, my knees are gonna hurt. So I was just sitting there doing more damage to my freaking legs. So I finally chose a different job, and when I did, I felt tons better. Now, Becca, a lot of these people can't just quit their jobs. Yeah, they can't just quit their jobs, right? But that plays a huge role into it, right? So if you're worried about how many calories you're burning on a daily basis, again, what do we talk about? Resistance training, right? What does that do for you? It helps you build lean muscle mass, helps you burn fat in your sleep. It can help you burn fat while you're sitting in your chair all day, right? But then you have to think about, the type of foods you're eating, right? Are you eating highly thermogenic foods? Are you eating foods that require calories, that require your body to burn calories as you digest those foods, right? Are you putting yourself in the most optimal positions possible? Are you getting up throughout the day and moving as much as possible? Do you have a standing desk? Do you have a headset to where you can walk around your office, right? Doing these things outside of work in the way of exercise, doing these things outside of work in the way of meal prepping so that you're eating the right foods to compensate for the fact that you're not moving as much, and then just trying to get up off of your ass as much as possible throughout the day. And then, of course, that can all play a role in the momentum you have when you do leave work, so that you can go and get more of a targeted workout in, But if you're sitting all day and you're not doing any of those things, you're done for, okay? It's going to have an impact on you, absolutely, and you're going to be fighting an uphill battle for the rest of your life. So either find a different job or get your ass up more. Plain and simple, right? Or do what you need to do at home, right? Let's move on. Number 5. You can tell I'm very passionate about the seated thing, because I did that shit for 3 years. And I did that shit for 3 years at the same place. But before I did it for 3 years at the same place, I was doing it for 2 years, just at multiple other jobs. And I freaking hated it, okay? So I am very passionate about it. Get your ass up, all right? Number 5, sleep, okay? I'm not a sleep expert, right? But sleep plays a huge impact on your ability to recover, right? So imagine you having this engine that if you don't turn the engine off for 6 to 10 hours a day, the engine will only work at like 60% capacity, or it'll only work at like 70% capacity. Imagine if you I don't know, work the engine. You had like a big monster truck. Let's call it a big monster truck, and you needed to give that monster truck engine diesel fuel, right? And you gave it diesel fuel, but it also needed, and I'm talking, protein is the simile here, but you also needed to rest that engine. You needed to plug that engine up. This is an electric charging engine or something like that.
Diesel fuel.
This is diesel fuel. I didn't do that right, but you get what, you know what I'm trying to say. I don't know how cars work, but you got to plug this thing up, right? And so you're trying to compensate for the fact that maybe you forgot to plug it up, so you're feeding it diesel fuel, but that diesel fuel is only going to take it so far. You've got to almost got you got to sit down and you got to plug the damn engine up and let it rest, let it recharge, and then you can get back in that diesel car. So now you've got a good combination, or diesel truck. Now you've got a good combination, right? That engine is going to perform better, right? Because it's got the sleep/recharge it needs, and you've been feeding it the diesel fuel that it needs.
Shut up.
But you know what I'm trying to say, right? It's no different than a plant, right? A plant can have all the food it needs from the soil, but if it doesn't have its water,
You're saying if it doesn't have its sleep.
if it doesn't have its water, no, the water is asleep in this case. If it doesn't have its water or its sunlight, right? It's not going to grow the way you want it to, right? It's not going to get lean muscle.
My plants are happy.
Your plants are happy. I'm just saying, plants are not going to get that lean muscle plant mass it needs. I had to make that one silly, y'all, because we all know that you need to freaking sleep. You know, if you're not sleeping, you're not performing at your highest capacity. That's just the way it is. You may think you are, but you're not. And also, don't think that just because you get 2 hours of sleep, you drink 5 cups of coffee, that's going to be like, oh, I can keep going. No, all coffee does is blocks. Oh God, I just read about this. There's like 2 specific hormones that it blocks, and those hormones tell you that you're tired as shit, and so all it's doing is just blocking those off. That's it. And so, God, I'm really pissed, you all. I'm sorry that I don't remember the name of the hormones, because I'm sure that you want to know. When you're done listening to this, go online. Google can tell you whatever you want to know. Look up 2 essential hormones that caffeine blocks when you drink coffee. It'll tell you exactly what they are. But essentially, you drink that and it blocks those hormones, and that's why you're like, oh, I feel awake. But no, really, you're fucking tired, right? The coffee's just like, nah, man, you good.
It tastes really good.
Huh?
It also tastes really good.
You think coffee tastes good? I don't think coffee tastes good. It's just, it's coffee. It's black. It's just black beans.
The taste of coffee.
I guess so. Just black. Who likes just black bitterness? All right, now number 6, y'all. Number 6, okay. Motivation. All right. You got to find your motivation. I guess I should have made this one the first one, honestly, because this is a big one. Because if you don't feel motivated to do all of those things, you're not going to do it.
On here to answer 2 questions.
Well, well, yeah, I mean, you answered a whole bunch of questions. We run short on time. That's why she said that, y'all. So motivation is a big one, right? I'm sorry, baby. I'm sorry. Motivation is a big one, right? If you don't have the motivation to reach your goals, if you don't know what your goal is and feel motivated to get there, then everything else is going to fall through the cracks, right? If you don't know that you want to lose 30 pounds in 6 months and you don't feel motivated to get there, right? Motivation, not just, oh man, I want to be able to fit back into them draws, right? Not just that, right? No, motivation. Man, I do not like the way I feel. My self-esteem, I have a negative body image here. I need to fix this, right? I don't want to feel this way anymore. I want to feel great about myself. That's great motivation, right? So you need to find that motivation. And when you do, everything else will come easy to you because you know it needs to happen so that you can feel the best about you, okay? Be good to yourself, y'all, all right? Be good to yourself. You can follow me on Instagram, AustinFTFY, or Facebook. That's Austin Z Pegram, or FTFY Information Community. That's our community page. Okay. Thank you all very much for listening. Becca, thank you very much for coming on. We'll see you next week. Dun-dun-dun, dun-dun-dun.